Talks are set to resume in Geneva tomorrow between the U.S. and Iran on trying to carve out a new nuclear deal. The U.S., in the meantime, ramping up its military presence in the region. Here's ABC's Ian Pannell.
It is the second round of indirect talks. In other words, the U.S. and Iranian delegations aren't going to sit and try and hammer it out face to face. Technical discussions have been taking place today with UN nuclear experts, trying to set some kind of technical framework. I think there have been some concerns from the Iranian side that the U.S. delegation didn't have that technical expertise.
Senator Lindsey Graham was in Israel today leading a delegation for meetings with Israeli leaders on security in the Middle East. The one-time parent company of TikTok making headlines again, this time for another app.
ByteDance now says it's making some changes to what kind of content can be generated with its AI tool, Dance 2.0. The Motion Picture Association accused the Chinese company of not doing enough to stop the technology from creating images and videos of copyrighted works, after several such AI-generated videos went viral on social media in recent days.
ABC's Mike Dubusky. Team USA continues to rake in the wins and medals at the Milan Cortina Olympics. Alana Myers-Taylor, the most decorated Olympic women's bobsledder, won her first Olympic gold medal by besting the field in women's monobob. Myers-Taylor edging out Germany, and Kaylee Arbuster-Humphreys won the bronze. Michelle Franzini.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela. Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything. But while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
4:05 on this Monday, President's Day, and I'm Will Feelright with your KBNU local headlines. And starting off in college basketball, it was the perfect Valentine's for Aggie fans as Utah State had 3 players score 20 points or more as the Aggies down the Memphis Tigers 99-75 in the Spectrum. Now, senior guard MJ Collins Jr. led the Aggies with 23 points, making 10 straight shots after missing his first 4. Carson Templin, meanwhile, added a career best 20 points off the bench, shooting a perfect 10 of 10 from the free throw line. Mason Falslev also contributed 20 points and a team high of 6 rebounds. Head coach Jared Calhoun, after the win, talking about the game plan going in against Memphis.
Adlin and Drake struggled tonight, so we went with the small ball lineup, and sure enough, those guys provided great energy and belief in that first half to end the first half. And then I thought, the last 9-10 minutes, we really imposed our will on these guys. But great win. Unfortunately, the way the rules are written, you gotta run people out of the gym. When you have a chance to score points, you have to. We're not sitting home on Selection Sunday saying, hey, we could have scored this basket or that basket. It is what it is. So I said we got to score every single time. It's a stupid system that we have, but it is what it is.
Now, of course, the Aggies will host Boise State coming up on Wednesday night, hoping for another dominant win. Well, 2 small plane crashes yesterday resulted in no injuries in Utah. Now, in West Bountiful, a plane carrying 4 people had to make an emergency landing on Legacy Parkway after experiencing an engine malfunction. Now, Utah Highway Patrol Corporal Jared Haywood said that the landing affected traffic on the right lane for about an hour, but all occupants were safe. Now, separately, a single-engine plane also crashed into the Salt Flats about 7 miles north of Wendover. Tooele County Sheriff Paul Wimmer said that the aircraft had lost thrust during a maneuver, causing it to nosedive and skid roughly 70 feet. Now, the 2 men aboard walked away uninjured. A small amount of fuel did spill at the scene. And State Representative Tiara Oxier has introduced legislation to provide internet access for students in rural districts during long bus rides. House Bill 462 is proposing a $325,000 grant program to equip buses with Wi-Fi, allowing students to complete homework while traveling for extracurricular activities. Now, Oxier noted that rural students often return home late at night, hours after traveling. The bill targets buses carrying students in grades 7 through 12 on trips exceeding 1 hour. Now, the funding would cover installation for 2 buses per rural district utilizing filtered internet, similar to in-school networks. Now, while the bill aims to improve student productivity, some school officials have expressed reservations regarding the timing, citing current educational budget cuts, suggesting that the money might be better utilized elsewhere, despite the proposal's merits. Well, weather-wise, going to see the storm coming in tonight, bringing with it some rain and snow as we've enjoyed some sunshine today. Temperatures have been in the mid-50s, but tonight, well, and into tomorrow, colder weather coming as we'll get down into the mid-20s. That's snow and rain expected overnight into tomorrow, and then going to continue pretty much on and off through the rest of the week as by Thursday, highs are only going to be in the low 30s with overnight temperatures back into the mid-teens. So yes, winter is definitely coming back. And weather this hour is brought to you by Discount Tire. Yeah, perfect time to get into Discount Tire to make sure that your tires are going to be able to handle snow and rain that's headed our way over the next several days. And remember, they also handle more than just tires. Discount Tire is your place for oil changes, alignments, shocks, struts, and brakes. It's Discount Tire in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield. And I'm Will Theelwright with your KVNU local headlines.
Valentine's Day celebrates love, the flowers, the cards, the gestures, but the most meaningful love is the kind that lasts. You've worked hard for your body, you've shown discipline, and still, some areas never change. That's not failure, that's biology. At Bell Sculpt, we permanently remove stubborn fat cells, not temporarily shrink them. And yes, even love handles deserve a little love. This isn't about changing who you are, it's about finishing what efforts you started. This Valentine's Day, choose yourself. Visit bellsculpt.fm to book your free consultation today.
The local news source, News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
At Canyon Plumbing and Heating, we don't believe in quick fixes that will cost you more down the line. As a locally owned, locally operated company serving Cache Valley since 2005, we're invested in this community and our customers. That's why we take the time to find the root of the problem and fix it right the first time. Call 435-881-6952 or visit canyonph.net. Canyon Plumbing and Heating, local service you can trust.
How do you pick where to buy tires? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Ask your dog? Yeah, don't do that. Go where people know tires. Discount Tire in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield. They've got the brands you trust, plus brands to save you money, like Nixon, Summit, and Cascade. And a team that's fair, honest, and won't accidentally upsell you a gold-plated valve stem. Summer road trips are coming, and bald tires in July? That's basically a slip and slide with your in-laws in the back seat. Discount Tire, online at webtires.net.
Tire store.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency, so we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com, and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Monday, February 16th. I'm Jason Williams, 55 degrees here at the Radio Ranch, 4:11 in the afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It's President's Day. This means that the legislature is not active today. Well, they're probably pretty active, but not officially in session in recognition of the holiday. And one of my absolute favorite things about the President's Day holiday is something that for a long time was a legislative tradition. She's now retired from the legislature, but it was one of my favorite things. And people would kind of, I mean, some, even her colleagues on the Hill kind of heckled and joked and in a kind way, mocked her for this, but it was something she took very seriously. But long time, now retired, Utah State Senator Margaret Dayton, very, very conservative state senator from the Utah County area, She was at her prime as a state senator in the heyday of the Eagle Forum's influence on Utah. They've now kind of faded as an organization, but Dayton was propelled into the state Senate on basically their platform. She was there for quite some time. She was a very nice woman, and not at all someone who would, who you would, even jokingly suggest was just a complainer, a get off my lawn, old person shouts at clouds kind of, those memes. She wasn't like that. She was very, pleasant disposition, generally seemed to be happy to be wherever she was. She was very smart. But there was this one issue that would just make her face turn red, and it would start the week before President's Day. And she would, the week before, there'd be, several mentions of President's Day. So, you'd have Thursday or Friday the week before. We'll bring this back after President's Day, or we will before President's Day, try and get this done, things like that. And she would get so angry because she wasn't a fan of lumping a bunch of folks together into a generic national holiday and calling it President's Day. And she would remind everyone that the story of President's Day actually begins in 1800, following the death of George Washington in 1799, and his birthday, which was actually February 22nd, which became an annual day of remembrance. It wasn't really listed as a national holiday, but it was celebrated like one. And in those years, Dayton would remind, this is, by the way, historically accurate, not just her opinion, but she would say, at the time, Washington was more closely remembered as, he's always going to be remembered as an important figure in American history. Obviously, it's George Washington. But then it was, with it being, just a few years after his death when these debates were happening, or the next year and then the year after and the year after that, it went on for about 3 years. And then, of course, the, official declaration in 1832, 3 decades later, for the centennial of his birth and the start of construction in 1848 on the Washington Monument, kind of revived these debates. But in the year or two after his death in 1799, there was this de facto national holiday that would be, this day of remembrance that would be recognized by cities and counties and the federal government, and the railroad unions got I think a half day. I mean, it was everyone on February 22nd would acknowledge his birthday. And then, and that is still, Washington's birthday is still an unofficial observance on President's Day, or being unofficially observed on President's Day. And that irritated State Senator Margaret Dayton. Because, so in 1885, the holiday initially was only officially celebrated in Washington, D.C., strangely enough. That was the District of Columbia had it on the books that Washington's birthday, February 22nd, was a holiday. All the banks would be closed, the mail wouldn't get delivered, and it was just Washington, D.C., though. In 1885, that was expanded out to the whole country, and at the same time, they connected Washington's birthday with others, and then just picked the third Monday. And Senator Margaret Dayton found this so offensive. And again, people would kind of tease her about this, but she was coming at it from a sincere place. She felt that it was, while it was convenient for the economy, for states and the federal government to lump a bunch of birthdays together and to President's Day, she thought it was a disrespect to someone who was as historically important as George Washington. And she had a speech that she would give, and it was fiery. Now, unfortunately, I used to have some audio of one of her speeches. In fact, I think it was her last her last time on the Senate floor before the end of her final session when she retired from the state Senate. And I can't find it. I looked throughout Friday afternoon and before the show today in our archives, and I've either labeled it something or wrong or just deleted it inadvertently, and that's unfortunate. I did reach out to the state Senate staff, and they're trying to see if they can find one for me that maybe I can use next year. But this is how I like to acknowledge President's Day. So again, on paper, the third Monday in February celebrates George Washington, February 22nd birthday, and Abraham Lincoln, February 12th was his birthday. But it is still legally known as Washington's birthday by the federal government. But even the federal government now will just say we're celebrating President's Day. And this is, again, to some people, historical originalists, I would say, is a good way to refer to them, like former State Senator Margaret Dayton, is a wholly offensive thing. So I love telling that story because it was so fun to hear her go on about this. She would give it was about a 15-minute speech that was also kind of a history lesson. And she'd been a teacher, so she knew how to do that kind of thing. And she would her face would go red, her voice would change from this pleasant, good-natured person she always was to this very strict, college professor kind of a tone. And she meant it, every bit of it. She hated that we celebrate it as President's Day. She said this didn't really gain popularity until the 1980s. And this, at this point, it's just a holiday to honor the office of the presidency in general. And she said it was a mistake to not have a separate holiday for George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, even though that would mean two federal holidays in February. She thought it was a disrespect to these two historical figures and former presidents to lump them together into a generic holiday that is now just a celebration of every president. Modern and those from long days gone by. So I don't know. I kind of see your point. I think for the most part, most of us interact with holidays as in it is a day off or not. But if the goal is actual commemoration of these individuals, I'm kind of with former State Senator Margaret Dayton that President's Day is a little vague, but either way, that's how we celebrate it. So happy President's Day. And we've got a lot coming up on the show today. I've got highlights from last week's county attorney candidate debate. 3 candidates, Chris Daines, Brett. Whoa. Almost lost the audio. Little behind-the-scenes panic there from everyone. But Chris Daines, Brett Chambers, and Dane Murray sat down on campus last Thursday. I had a chance to contribute a bit to this, both with some of the questions asked, but also there as timekeeper and general candidate wrangler. The questions were asked by USU College Republicans. The whole event was organized by Natalie Levi and the Cache County GOP, and the room was packed. It was so cool to see on a Thursday night at the Huntsman School of Business building, Huntsman Hall, room 260, chock full. There wasn't an empty seat in the place. It was so nice to see that many people engaged already in this, and there were some really good questions, including one that came after the official debate ended that was asked by the Cache County Sheriff, Chad Jensen. He had a great question about the future of some of the legislative work that's been done, criminal justice reform and otherwise. So I've got highlights for you. We'll get to those right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Blake Moore here. Strong families are the bedrock of our communities. That's why I'm focused on bringing Utah's core values to Washington and advancing pro-family legislation. I helped permanently increase the child tax credit, create investment accounts for children, and incentivize employers to provide better access to childcare, benefiting families and setting up our next generation for success. As a father of 4 boys, family is everything, and I am continuing to work on solutions to make raising a family in America more affordable. To learn more about what I am doing to advocate for you and your family in Congress, sign up for my weekly e-newsletter at blakemore.house.gov and follow along on social media at Rep. Blake Moore. If your family needs help navigating a federal agency or has questions about what I'm working on, please give my office a call at 801-625-0107. Happy to also help coordinate U.S. Capitol tours, take your comments, and provide legislative updates at any time. It is our honor to serve you and your family in Congress. Thank you. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
From breaking weather alerts to Friday night lights, local radio is there when Cache Valley needs it most. But it's also working every day, supporting small businesses, creating jobs, and strengthening the local economy. Economists say the impact of local broadcasting reaches into every corner of the economy, and it starts right here at home. Local radio matters because local communities matter. Cache Valley Media Group, serving Cache Valley and Northern Utah.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt Pure Love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Last Thursday evening, the Cache County Republican Party hosted a county attorney debate on campus at Huntsman Hall. The room was packed. Questions were asked by some very, very talented and in-the-know people with their follow-up questions. They've been paying attention from the USU Republicans organization. And we had an opportunity. We were invited by Natalie Levi to submit some questions for our listeners as well to include in the debate that night. You can listen to the entire thing via our podcast. Audio has been uploaded there, but some highlights for those who don't have time to spend the hour with the full recording. There were some standout moments. And one of them, of course, I'm biased, but this was a question that was actually lumping some very similar related questions together sent in by our listeners. And it all kind of came back to growth. As the candidates, Chris Daines, Brett, excuse me. That is the second time as I've set this up that I've almost deleted the actual audio. It has been one of those days. Chris Daines, county attorney candidates. Of the county attorney candidates, Chris, Brett, and Dane all, handled these questions with, ease, I think. But there were some questions that were a little deeper than I think most of us expected. So again, Chris Daines, Brett Chambers, and Dane Murray, who is currently serving as acting a county attorney as well as candidate for the November election. The special election, and then we'll see on the November election. It's complicated this year. They fielded some questions on everything from the future of the county attorney's office as it pertains to public defenders, the relationship between the county attorney's office and the executive and the legislative branch, the county council. Questions about relationship between the county attorney's office and the public, which has been at times contentious. Even some questions about high turnover in the county attorney's office the last several years. It was a great discussion, great questions, but again, we had a chance to submit some feedback ahead of time for questions to be asked, and we probably got this question in 10 or 11 different phrasings, but it was a question basically about growth, and the question was worded this way: as the Valley grows, how will the county attorney's office, the sheriff's department, the public defender's program, the budgets for all of these have to change as we go forward? And the candidates were happy to answer, starting with Chris Daines working towards Brett and then down to Dane Murray on the end of the row that night. Here were their answers to that question.
So my answer to that is that that's really not the role of the Cache County attorney to do. That it's the Cache County Council who has to legislate and deal with growth and budgets and all of that, and figure out how to properly staff the sheriff's office and all of the other departments, the growth in roads and housing. Zoning is definitely in the purview of the Cache County Council. So what the Cache County Attorney's Office can do is to give great advice as quickly as possible to the council as these needs continue to grow.
That was Chris Daines. Next answer was Brett Chambers.
There will obviously be, there's going to be new crime. That's always going to be going on wherever there's a population, unfortunately. And so, new challenges like we've had a lot of fentanyl in the valley that has been coming and things like that. And so having strong partnerships with law enforcement, making sure that we have those cooperative relationships, that we have communication going on between our office and law enforcement, I think is going to be critical. And I would commit to be doing that and to having that. Absolutely. I think part of it, just like Chris mentioned, does get back to zoning and making sure that the council has good civil legal advice as well. But really, it's going to come back to supporting law enforcement and the really important duties and responsibilities that they have.
So and finally, really Dean Murray.
There's the civil aspect, and I think our county council has set us up extremely well for the future. We've passed a new general plan in the last few years that gives the plan of what the county is going to look like. They're working on plans on ordinances for subdivisions and issues related to water. And I think that's going to be a really important part of the county attorney's office going forward. But the other part of that is the criminal side. And I actually disagree with Chris. I think it is the sheriff and the county attorney's office responsibility to let our legislature know what we need. They're not the experts. If you look at a really good metric, I think, for the county attorney's office is looking at our special victims cases. And you look at the time frame from 2014 to 2017, and we averaged just over 100 cases per year that were in that category. So that's felony, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse. The next 3 years, that went up to over 200 cases per year. The next 3 years after that, it was over 300. And then the last 3 years, 2022 through May of 2025, we were over 400 cases a year. During that time, we've directed a little bit more resources to the criminal side. We haven't added more support staff during that time. And as the valley continues to grow and those threats continue to grow, I think it's important that we continue to look at the needs of our office, because the county attorney's office does affect public safety. It affects people's lives every single day, and I think it's important to make sure that we're devoting the right resources there. And so my goal would be to make sure that we're staying on top of that. We're understanding what our people need, so we can devote time to victims, and we can make sure the council knows what we need to keep the community safe.
Again, that was Dane Murray, current acting county attorney and candidate in this special election, answering last there. Starting with Chris Daines, the county attorney debate again was last Thursday with Chris Daines, Brett Chambers, and Dane Murray all on hand. That was a question that was, again, kind of a conglomerate of questions that we got sent in when I solicited them from listeners last week, pertaining to growth or public safety in general. And so the question again was, how might the county attorney's office, the sheriff's department, the public defender's program, how might they need to grow and change as the population grows? And so you heard three very different answers there from three very different candidates. With Chris Daines answering first, Brett Chambers second, and Dane Murray there at the end. On the other side, a question that was, so the debate wrapped up around 7 p.m. As scheduled, and yet nobody got up. And so Natalie asked if I had any other questions. I asked the candidates how they felt about Speaker Mike Schultz on that same day announcing that he'd like to open up the courts, something I'm very supportive of, but also recognize is way easier said than done. So I asked the candidates, how do you feel about that? Could that be done? What would you need to do to make the courts more transparent, to allow the public to more easily get recordings and files that pertain to certain court cases and hearings and things like that, recognizing that a lot of these situations are going to require a lot more work to protect privacy. It's not just enough to scrub names and addresses that come up, which you can do almost automatically with software these days. A lot of court hearings would reveal enough information that neighbors would be able to figure out if it was one of their neighbors that was being discussed. So privacy concerns are much greater. And so my question was, would this be possible? That's something you can hear in the full audio, their answer to that. But more interestingly, there was a bonus question after the debate ended, of course, but while we were still recording, in which County Sheriff Chad Jensen spoke up. And he had a question about recent efforts by the legislature to reform the criminal justice system. Some that went well, some that didn't go so well, some that were great ideas, but that they didn't fund. They became unfunded mandates on the sheriff's departments and especially county jails. And the whole thing kind of ended up a bit more of a mess than I'm sure the legislature intended it to be. Those talks are ongoing at the legislative level, and County Sheriff Chad Jensen asked the candidates where they were at on that stuff. We've got their answers for you after this look at the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Cache County School District has been awarded a $15.2 million Catalyst Center implementation grant to expand career-focused education across northern Utah. Now, the funding will support construction of a new Northern Utah Cache Caps campus in North Logan. Now, proposed sites are going to be next to the Bridgerland Technical College's West Innovation Campus. The program will serve students in Cache, Box Elder, Logan, and Rich County School Districts, along with Intech Collegiate Academy. Now, through partnerships with Utah State University and Bridgerland Technical College, students will be able to stack credentials toward technical certifications and four-year degrees. Now, Superintendent Todd McKee says the expansion will give students equitable access to high-skill career pathways. Now, the program, which currently serves about 100 students, is expected to grow to up to 900 students beginning in the 2026-27 school year. Well, a police canine unit reportedly discovered over $300,000 worth of illegal drugs, including 25 pounds of methamphetamine, during a traffic stop in southeastern Utah. Now, the San Juan County Sheriff's Office reported that members of its Major Crimes and Drug Task Force had stopped a vehicle for equipment violations back on Friday night at around 6 o'clock. Now, during the stop, the canine alerted deputies to the odor of drugs, prompting a probable cause search. Now, authorities say they seized more than 25 pounds of suspected methamphetamine, over 1 pound of fentanyl powder, 10,000 fentanyl pills, and 51 grams of heroin. Now, the driver and a passenger were both arrested and booked into the San Juan County Jail. And the Bear River Health Department has reported a confirmed case of anthrax in a deceased cow that was transported from Idaho to Utah State University's Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory for testing. Now, officials say that individuals with direct exposure to the animal have been identified and are receiving preventative treatment, including antibiotics and vaccines. Now, the department emphasized the infection was naturally occurring and unrelated to bioterrorism. Now, the department also stated in a press release that they are providing the information proactively so that if community members heard that preventative antibiotics or vaccines were administered, they would understand that this was done out of caution. Now, anthrax bacteria occurs naturally in soil and is occasionally found in livestock. The infection does not spread, though, from person to person, and officials said the risk to the general public remains extremely low. Well, the National Weather Service has issued a winter storm warning for tonight, continuing through Thursday, as we're going to see a chance of rain and snow beginning overnight tonight as temperatures are going to drop into the mid-20s. And then that chance of moisture continuing tomorrow, bringing heavy snow expected in the mountains, rain in the valley, and it's going to continue through the rest of the week. It could even see a little bit of rain and snow continuing into Saturday as well, before we'll see sunny skies returning on Sunday. And weather brought to you by Bell Sculpt, where right now they're still offering 26% off any procedure. That's right, 26% off any procedure to help you target those stubborn areas that diet and exercise just can't seem to fix. It's Bell Sculpt. Get more information by visiting their website, bellsculpt.fm. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU local headline.
Winter is finally here, and for Whole Tree Care, it's when the smartest work gets done. January and February mean the biggest savings of the year on tree trimming, 40% off. With the leaves gone, it's easier to trim and shape your trees, all while beating the spring rush.
Whole Tree Care.
The only finger you have to lift is to dial the phone number, 760-6587. Whole Tree Care, 760-6587.
Whole Tree Care.
Bringing Wall Street to Main Street. From your local experts in downtown Logan, this is the Adams Wealth Advisors Market Report.
Hi, this is David Kastner with Adams Wealth Advisors. Stocks finished the week on a modestly upbeat note after the Consumer Price Index report came in with a softer than expected reading. Yet the more positive tone today couldn't make up for the recent weakness amid worries about the disruptions from AI on some industries like software and financials, in addition to a rotation out of some of the big data center and AI plays like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google over the last month or so. By the closing bell, all the major indexes were roughly flat on the day and off about 1.3% on the week, which was the worst week since November. But as I've talked about recently, however, the story has been more about a rotation among the sectors in the past several months, with strong gains year to date in most of the non-technology sectors holding offsetting weakness in the mega-cap technology stocks. On the inflation front, the CPI rose 2.4% year over year in January, down from 2.7% in December and below estimates of a 2.5% rise. The core rate rose 2.5% in line with expectations. Yet despite the lower gasoline prices and used car prices, inflation in many everyday consumer goods remains sticky, particularly in a number of the healthcare categories. Not surprisingly, new healthcare jobs were behind the better-than-expected jump in non-farm payrolls reported on Wednesday. The January report showed that non-farm payrolls rose by 130,000 last month, well above expectations, and the unemployment rate fell to 4.3%. Despite the strong report, the slower-than-expected inflation numbers spurred traders to price in higher odds of 3 Fed rate cuts this year. This sentiment shifted along with the jump in stock market volatility, pressuring Treasury yields sharply lower, with the 10-year yield down about 15 basis points this week to 4.06%, which helped drive down the 30-year average mortgage rate to about a 3-year low of 6.04%. While this hasn't translated into an upturn in housing sales, the lower mortgage rates resulted in a rise in refinances, with lower monthly payments helping consumers who bought houses in the past several years. Next week, we'll get an update on numbers on how the consumers are hanging in there in terms of income and spending, as well as a first look at Q4 GDP growth. Until then, enjoy your long weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday with our next Adams Market Update.
That's your update from Adams Wealth Advisors, guiding your financial future one day at a time. For personalized help planning yours, reach out to us at 435-752-1702. See you soon, Cache Valley. Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
Winter's cold winds, dry air, and blowing heaters can leave your eyes feeling more irritated than ever. Hi, this is Dr. Rebecca Freeman with Northern Utah Eye Center. We diagnose and treat dry eye disease with easy in-office procedures such as IPL or LipiFlow that provide relief and comfort to dry eyes this winter season. All of us at Northern Utah Eye Center are dedicated to providing excellent care for all your eye care needs. And thank you for voting Northern Utah Eye Center Best Ophthalmologist and Best Optometrist in Northern Utah. Visit northernutaheyecenter.com or call 752-2020 today.
You're gonna love what you see.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Highlights from the Cache GOP County Attorney Candidate Debate. This took place last Thursday at the Huntsman Hall on campus, and I was invited to participate. Got to help with timekeeping and a little candidate wrangling. There was a slew of great questions. You should really listen to the entire thing. I've played some highlights here before the news from the general question round, but I wanted to get to this one that actually came up after the debate. So the debate happened between 6 and 7. Candidates handled 7 different questions, and as well as opening statements from each candidate there. And on hand, of course, you had the 3 candidates in this race for Cache County Attorney, Dane Murray, Brett Chambers, and Chris Daines. We went through the debate. It was great. The place was packed. Every seat in this auditorium was full. It was so great to see that. And hats off to the Natalie Levi and the Cache GOP leadership team for putting this together on really short notice. Literally days. They had to put this together, and they did. And the questions were great. The event was moderated officially by USU Republicans, and they did a great job as well. I jumped in a few times when there was some confusion over who was going next and things like that, but otherwise they handled it. And you should really listen to the entire thing. It's been posted to our podcast feed if you'd like to find it there. Cache GOP will also be posting an actual video of the event soon. So keep an eye on that on their YouTube channel. But some highlights for you here. After the debate ended, it officially ended at 7. Some people got up and left, and most stayed. And Natalie asked the crowd, "Would you like to continue?" She asked the candidates, "Are you game to continue?" And they were. But we didn't have any prepared questions. So I took the first one. I asked them about Speaker Mike Schultz announcing he'd like to open the courts up a bit more, make it easier for people to get audio recordings, video, and documents from court proceedings. And that's going to be complicated because there are a lot of privacy concerns. It's not as simple as scrubbing names and addresses. Details in a court proceeding could easily allow a person to connect the dots on getting, nosing into one of their neighbors' businesses. It would be difficult to do this, but the Speaker of the House says we should try. And I'm supportive. I really think it shouldn't cost as much for people to get documents and records from the courts. But it's going to be a few years. So that I asked that question, how they felt about it. Some great answers there. But the most interesting part of this bonus round was when Cache County Sheriff Chad Jensen spoke up. Said he had a question about recent criminal justice reform efforts by the Utah legislature that, mixed results, is putting it nicely on those. Well-intentioned, great ideas, really, but poorly funded, poorly planned, poorly timed. And a lot of it ended up being just an unfunded mandate on county sheriffs and county jails. And so, the mistake there was on the part of the legislature, 100%. Cache County Sheriff Chad Jensen asked the candidates, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about talk of going back to the drawing board on this? How do you feel about talk of revamping the entire thing or just trying the whole thing again decades from now? And here's what the candidates had to say. Starting out with, we went in a different order on this question just to keep things fresh on who started and who ended the 3-question series. So we started on this question with Brett Chambers. Then it moves to Dane Murray, and Chris Daines answers last. That's the order you're about to hear them speak here. So Brett Chambers first, answering that question on criminal justice reform from the county sheriff.
And guidelines, and there are some things that haven't. And so I think that that's a conversation that we have to continue to have, is to say, okay, here's what was good about that, and really here's what didn't work with it, and then we continue to tweak it. And I think that we have to follow what the data shows us as well, which is what I love about the changes that they have made, is that they have tried to make it more evidence and data-based, and I think that we continue to have to do that. There have been problems, with drug court in particular. There were not consequences, and so there was no incentive to actually go through drug court. I sat on the Friends of First District Drug Court, which was a nonprofit organization to try to help individuals go through the drug court process, and that was really sad to see that they weren't going to get the help that they really did need, and so I think that we need to continue to have those conversations. Thank you.
That was, again, Brett Chambers. Next up was Dane Murray.
Just for people in the room, Justice Reinvestment Initiative was passed in 2015, and essentially what it did was it made most hard drug crimes, rather than being felonies, it turned them into misdemeanors until there was enough convictions. But it's also had other effects. They changed a lot of the sentencing guidelines. I think it'd be shocking to people to hear we were convicting people for possession of child pornography And most people who we prosecute for that don't have any criminal history. And based on the sentencing guidelines, where they were falling was 90 to 180 days with probation. And so it wasn't just on the drug offenses, it was kind of overall. And the funny thing about JRI is all of the stakeholders on the criminal justice side were telling the legislature that this is a really bad idea. And within just a couple of years, the recidivism rate had actually gone up. And we still haven't turned back a lot of those changes. I know like Danny Majors in the back there, he runs, from the county attorney's office, runs the mental health court program, and our drug court program. We've actually, you hear all the time our numbers are so far down from where they were in 2015 before this happened. And it's really sad. The people that get in there we're letting them get to a place where they're just so far into their addiction, where we were able to intervene earlier previously because there was some incentive. But even when we're getting to those felony level offenses under the current sentencing guidelines, there's just not enough time hanging over their heads. And it's unfortunate because I've talked to many different addicts, some people who have gone to prison, and they said that was the only thing that was going to be able to fix me was either the threat of prison or going. And we've gone away from that, and you can say it's being merciful, but is it really merciful to let someone just constantly go through that cycle of addiction and the impact that has on their life and their family members' lives without us intervening? I think that the bill that is being run that changes some of the composition of the Sentencing Commission is a really good step. I think there's some problems too. I'm talking to APP, which is Adult Probation and Parole, and they were telling me all of the jail beds that the state contracts for and the jails are full right now for prison inmates. The prison, the brand new prison is full to capacity as far as they've opened it. There's still parts they just don't have the employees to open, and then Gunnison's full. And so there's some talk down there about adding on to Gunnison, but basically they said every time we're sending someone to prison now, we're having to let someone out. And so that doesn't help the community, and that makes it really hard to, sometimes our jail sentences we can get are longer than a prison sentence. You'll get them sent to the jail for a year. If you send them on a 1 to 15 in the prison, they'll be out in 6 months. And that makes it really hard to actually get people help or hold anyone accountable when that's the reality of our justice system.
That was again Dane Murray. And then finally, Chris Daines had a chance to answer the question again posed by the Cache County Sheriff on criminal justice reforms at the state legislative level.
And I think as the county attorney, I have tons of political opinions. Just ask my family, you know. But the truth is that once you're locked into that position as county attorney, it's not in your lane to try to influence policy unless the county wants you to. That your services to your client. And so, and you kind of, as distasteful it might be, you follow the law, and whatever comes out of Salt Lake that's not unconstitutional, you better bear down and figure out how to follow it. And so I although I'd love to engage in this debate, and I'm probably not as well equipped as these two to do it.
To follow up to that.
Sure.
Is as the county attorney, your client is the citizens of Cache County, and that's providing public safety.
No, it's not. It's not the citizens of Cache County. It is the governmental entity of the county. That's a very big difference.
And I guess we'll disagree on that, because
We will.
I believe as the sheriff and the county attorney, my obligation as sheriff is to provide public safety to all the citizens of Cache County. I represent every citizen of Cache County. And I do think it's my job to go down there and lobby or talk or speak with whoever I can speak with the things that I think are going to be the best for the citizens of Cache County. And I don't ask permission from the county, can I go to the legislature? I do the things I do on behalf of public safety. And I disagree with a lot of it. JRI, I didn't care for. I think the great things that came out of that were the mental health court with the drug court. Family members, myself, who've gone through those things. And jail saves people's lives. Prison saves people's lives. And we've given up the opportunity to save lives by locking people up. And I know that sounds weird, but it's the truth. But so, as a county attorney and public safety, I guess we're not different
Well, not really, because I believe that the sheriff and law enforcement and other elected officials, your role is policy. And that's part of, and I appreciate your perspective that I represent the people of Cache County, and in the sense of I'm trying to keep them safe. I respect that. But honestly, that's the county attorney should assist you in that, but the job is focused on representing the county as an entity.
Can I play devil's advocate? That was a really interesting exchange. And so right after that, I tried to keep the conversation going. I said to Chris, after, the sheriff interjected there, and clarified, where he was coming from with asking the question, I interjected and said, if the legislature is about to pass something that is going to make it impossible for the county to properly fund the county sheriff's department and the county jail to the level it would need to be funded, or the county attorney's office and public defender's program, wouldn't it then be the county attorney's job to go down and explain that to lawmakers? And Chris reiterated that he felt, that would be up to the county council. If they told him to, he would. If they didn't tell him to, that wouldn't be the county attorney's job. And I see where he's coming from. A little exchange then broke out. It goes on for about another 10 minutes if you'd like to hear the whole thing, with Brett and Dane both chiming in. Chris, Brett, and Dane having a little bit of a back and forth on that as well. And then Dane kind of finishing up the conversation before we called time, saying that, the legislature, they do a good job. Cache Valley's representatives do a good job of speaking for us, but sometimes even that isn't enough, and you have to go down there and say, this will bankrupt us. And that's kind of where JRI went off the rails. Let me put it this way. I'm a big fan of what JRI was all about. The idea that if you can keep people out of prison through being more creative than just slapping prison sentences on. I think we learned in the late 80s, early 90s that the three-strike policies of the drug war, the no discretion for judges, those types of policies that were really ramped up in the late 80s, early 90s to fight the, quote, war on drugs. They didn't work. They made it worse. JRI comes along. I love the sentiment behind it, I should say, or the philosophy that, maybe somebody shouldn't go to a state prison for a nonviolent drug offense. Maybe that's actually putting them in an environment where they'll learn worse behavior. I mean, we do see that. Or disrupting their lives unnecessarily for a crime that had no violent aspect to it, or not even a theft aspect to it. I'm very sympathetic to that. What the legislature did wrong is they said, let's try this. And then they gave no extra money to the county sheriffs and county jails through the counties. None. And they pinned the whole thing on Medicaid money that would be coming from the federal government that then it didn't end up coming. It was poorly designed by the legislature. And so what happened is the county jail got just stuffed full of people on 30-day sentences instead of 6-month state prison sentences, but they had no extra money to do anything about that new workload. That's just one example of how the legislature completely messed this one up. So I love the philosophy of it. I'm really glad the county sheriff brought the question up. And there you have a little perspective on where the candidates for county attorney are coming from on an issue that is definitely coming back. The legislature has already said they're not leaving this one alone. They haven't touched it yet this year, but they'll find time. So if you want to hear the whole debate, again, link on our podcast feed. You can subscribe using any podcast app you choose, and the full debate and the bonus question there for you to hear. And it was a great night. By the way, I just got word from Natalie Levi, that Cache County Republican Party chair, that the next debate is already planned March 19th. Casey Snyder and Jim Atkinson will debate. Casey's Snyder, a Republican representative on the Hill as we speak. In fact, he's joining us on the show tomorrow to speak to us about bills he's running, and Jim Atkinson challenging him in a Republican primary that will play out. That is March 19th they've planned that for, so we'll give you more details on that as they emerge. And we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Who Who do you turn to if you want to change out your wood or pellet stove? Advanced Fireplace and Stove. They were voted the gold medalist for Best of Northern Utah for the 5th year in a row in the fireplace retrofit category. Be ready when the government's next wood and pellet replacement incentives pop up. Advanced Fireplace can help you navigate the paperwork. For more information, call Advanced Fireplace and Stove, 752-7272. Online at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Here in Utah, we're built different. We're built for winter. Whether you're getting the kids to school on a snowy morning or tackling a slick commute home, at a Murdoch GMC Chevrolet Cadillac, we're built to get you through it. This month, lease a new GMC Sierra 1500 for only $565 per month. You've got to come and see us at Murdoch Chevrolet GMC Cadillac in Logan or online at murdochchevroletlogan.com. GMC, we are professional grade.
Call 888-391-6083 as we deliver complete details. Offer expires 3/2/26.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shelley Flace with today's tip for kids from the American Academy of Pediatrics. If you own firearms, it's your responsibility to make sure they're always stored safely. Hiding them in a closet or drawer is not enough. Kids know where they are. Research shows the risk of injury and death is lower if guns are stored unloaded and locked up, with the ammunition locked in a separate place. This is important when children are young, as well as when they grow into teenagers. For more, talk with your pediatrician or visit healthychildren.org.
Hey, it's Colin from Heaven's Best Carpet Cleaning. We just wanted to say a big thank you. Because of you, we are the 2025 Best of Northern Utah Silver winner for carpet and upholstery cleaning. We are honored and proud to be a part of this amazing community.
If you think you're too young to worry about heart disease, think again. I'm Essence Harris, and I was 30 when an angiogram found a 90% blockage in 2 arteries. Now I'm asking all women to take control of their heart health. Exercise, eat a heart-healthy diet, and above all, listen to your body. Learn more at womenheart.org.
That's it for hour 1 of today's show, but stick around. History was made yesterday, and you probably heard it. You probably didn't see it. U.S. Department of Defense airlifted a mini nuclear reactor across the American West on Sunday and touched down at Hill Air Force Base here in Utah Sunday afternoon. It's headed for Emery County. We'll tell you what this is all about and why it was a historic moment for a lot of different reasons. That's coming up in hour 2 alongside the Utah GOP saying they've met the threshold. This will be weeks before we have confirmation that they have the number of signatures in 26 of 29 Senate districts required by state law for a ballot initiative, but they say they've done it. Said Utah GOP Chair Axon says they've hit the threshold. We'll talk about what this